Welcome then guys, this is Nearly Last. Now with all the hype that is surrounding Call of Duty World at War 2, obviously we've had it officially announced, we've got the trailer coming up in the next couple of days. Everybody's very enthusiastic about how this game is actually going to be playing out. Now as we know, with this particular installment, it's actually based on a real life war. So at this present moment in time, we don't know particularly which weapons are going to be implemented into the game. But as it's based on a particular war, we know pretty much roundabouts the kind of weapons that we're actually going to get into. So in this particular video, we are going to be looking at the SMGs. I did do a previous video in regards to the actual assault rifle, so if you haven't actually checked that one out, I will leave a link down in the description down below for you guys to go and check that one out after you've watched this one. But in this one, we are going to be crossing over onto the SMGs. Now a lot of people actually like to be running and gunning, especially in Call of Duty, and hopefully this particular installment that we've got coming up isn't going to be like COD 4. Hopefully it's going to be nice and fast paced, so SMGs will be very dominant, I would imagine, come November. So let's just jump into it and look at the type of weapons that are actually used during this particular period. So first up guys, we're going to have the Austin Submachine Gun. Now this particular submachine gun was made by the Australians. It was actually derived by the British Sten gun. Now this was actually used in the war between 1942 and 1945. This particular gun shot 9mm bullets and had a fire rate of 500 rounds per minute, and the magazine size on this particular gun was 32. Next up guys, we have this particular SMG. Now I'm not even going to bother trying to pronounce the particular name on this one, but this one's actually developed by Poland in 1943, obviously during the Second World War. Now with this particular gun, this was the only weapon that was ever mass produced covertly in Europe during World War II. This was mainly used though by the Polish resistance movement while they were actually fighting the Germans whilst they occupied Poland. Now with this particular weapon, it obviously shot 9mm bullets. Once again, it did have a rate of fire of 600 rounds per minute. It had an effective firing range of around about 200 meters, and the magazine size on this one again was 32. Next up guys, we got the Lanchester SMG. This particular SMG was designed by the British Army. It was made in 1941. It was used all the way during the Second World War up to 1945, but it did actually stay in service all the way up till 1960. It was mainly used by the Royal Navy, but it was also used by the Air Force as well. Now with this particular weapon, it's had 9mm bullets once again, at a high fire rate of 600 rounds per minute. It only had an effective firing range of 150 meters. Now with the magazine size on this particular one, you can actually use a 32 or a 50 round magazine as well. Next up guys, we've probably got one of the most famous SMGs of all time, and that is the M1 Thompson, formerly known as the Tommy gun. Now this particular weapon was obviously made during the Second World War. It first came about in 1938. It didn't actually stop being used in service by the US military till 1971, but with this particular gun, it was probably more famous during the Prohibition era in the United States, when obviously it was used by law enforcement and criminals as well. But with this particular weapon, it did once again shoot 9mm bullets, but it had a fire rate of 600 to 725 rounds per minute, so a very fast fire rate as well. And also on different variations of this particular weapon, it could shoot all the way up to 1500 rounds per minute as well. It had an effective firing range of 150 meters. Now with the actual magazines on this particular weapon, I had different ones for the different types of models. That added a 20 round, a 30, a 50, and then all the way up to 100 drum magazine as well. Next up guys, we've got the M3. This particular submachine gun was actually designed around the Thompson submachine gun. This was made 5 years after, in 1943. It was actually used then all the way up to 1992. Now this particular weapon was a lot less effective than the Thompson. Even though it was a lot cheaper to be made, a lot cheaper to actually run, it was a lot less effective. Now this one had a fire rate of 450 rounds per minute. Effective firing range, it was only 100 yards. It had fixed sights up to 100 yards, so it's not very long whatsoever. And then it actually had a magazine of 30. Next up we have the MAZ 38. Now this particular weapon was actually designed by the French, but with this particular gun, it was actually designed before the Second World War, so it was actually used, funny enough, by the French and the German forces. But France actually used it during the Second World War, mainly from 1939 all the way up to 1950. Now, with this particular weapon, it had a fire rate of 600 to 700 rounds per minute. Now, the effective firing range was only 100 meters. The maximum firing range, they said, with this particular weapon was only 200 meters. So, even though it had a fast fire rate, the range on this particular weapon was very, very small indeed. And with the magazine size on it, it was just a 32. Next up, guys, we've got another famous SMG weapon. That is the PPSH. Obviously, we've seen this particular weapon in Call of Duty before. Now, this was actually made by the Soviet Union, this one, and it was mainly used during the World War II, but it's also used during the Korean War as well. This one was very, very massively produced. It was made about 6 million times. But with this particular one, it was actually cheap, reliable, and very, very easy to use in every kind of situation. Now, with the actual rate of fire on this particular weapon, it was 900 to over 1,000 rounds per minute. So it had a very, very high fire rate. The effective firing range on this particular gun was 125 meters, though it could go out to about 150. But the maximum firing range on this one was 200 to 250 meters. Now, this one could actually come with two different types of magazines. It could come with a 35 round magazine, or also it could come with a 71 round. Next up, guys, we've got the Sterling submachine gun. This was actually made by the British Army. This one was actually made and put into service in 1944. Now, with this particular weapon, is out of all the other ones that we covered so far, is the only one that's actually still being used in present day times. Now, with this one, it had a rate of fire of 550 rounds per minute. Effective firing range is 200 meters. Now, this one does actually come in a suppressed version as well, which shoots out to 50 to 100 meters, depending on the kind of situation that you're actually in. Now, with the magazine size on this one, it is a 34 round. Now, these are all the types of SMGs that we're pretty much going to be guaranteed to be seeing in Call of Duty World at War come November. Now, which ones we actually get in the final build of the game is obviously yet to be determined. Obviously, we'll get more weapons in the actual campaign side of things rather than the multiplayer, but we'll have good, I would imagine, around about 6 SMGs that will make the final build of the actual multiplayer side of things. Now, in regards to that, I can guarantee that they're obviously going to be supply drops, so we'll probably be getting more weapons then who could be entering then into those supply drop systems, so we'll probably see a few more as we go along. I would imagine, though, in the final build of the game that we see in November, we'll definitely be seeing the Thompson. I would imagine we'll see the PPSH, probably the Lanchester and things like that will probably be actually implemented into, but we'll be finding that out later in the year. But let me know, guys, in the comment section below whether or not you're really, really excited for these types of weapons to be in Call of Duty or whatever, whether you think that maybe they're a little bit too basic, or which ones would be your favorite ones that you would actually like to see make the final build of the game. But it'll be very interesting to see what you got in mind in regards to which particular weapons you like. But if you enjoyed this video, guys, please drop a like. Help support me, it'd be absolutely amazing. Guys, if you've got anything that you'd like to discuss, make sure you join me in my live streams. I live stream about 6 times a week. It'd be fantastic to hear from you there, guys, as well. And guys, also, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. But this is going to be nearly last time. Catch you later.